Welcome to Biz 15, a Yorkshire business podcast facilitated by me, Don Brook, owner and director of Brook Corporate Developments. Each 15-minute podcast will be facilitated and ran by me and my team of consultants and clients to give you as a listener and watcher an insight to my business, an insight to how we operate across the region, and give you informative material on key topics of challenges that us as a business are facing outside of these four walls every day. Hopefully you enjoy the series. If you want to follow our YouTube channel and our business LinkedIn page, Brook Corporate Developments, for more information, we'll look forward to welcoming you onto the sessions. Would you say over the last 18 months, I'll bring up the C word, has COVID impacted the way that leaders think and the way that leaders are actually operating in businesses? Because from my role as MD and from my role as business support, so supporting businesses across our region, there just seems to be a lot of businesses inquiring to us at the moment about leadership interventions and getting the most out of their teams, because they might have even reduced the capacity of their team down, so they're trying to do more with not as many staff. So from my point of view, I actually think that there's been a huge shift in emphasis of businesses inquiring to us to be looking for more of this leadership capabilities of their staff and developing their staff. But it'd be interesting to see it from your point of view.
To be brutally honest, using the C word, to be brutally honest, people, leaders, owners will be remembered by the way they behaved and what they did during that period. Yeah, they will be remembered by it. And so the people that it's a difficult time, so I'm not saying this lightly, but the people that were as a leader should be proactive, looking at the possible realignment and the opportunity going forward, and the communication between their teams. Those people that did that are now absolutely flying. The ones that in some cases navel gazed and just hoped that things would go back to normal, that they're the ones that are struggling.
I think businesses had a huge challenge around leadership, especially when they were recruiting new staff into an organisation during COVID, but actually they weren't physically in an office. So how do you lead a team virtually? That is something that is a completely different ballpark to what it would be if you sat in an office with them. I know from our point of view, Andrew, you were brought into Brook in December 2020. Then we had Christmas. Then we had a lockdown, and then we only really got back to the office from April. So it was like, how do we engage you as a new member of staff into our organisation to give you the right opportunities to be able to take everything in about what we do? And we implemented that morning meeting. No matter what we were doing during that day, 9 while 10, we had that virtual meeting where 90% of it sometimes wasn't even work related, because we've got members of staff that live on their own, that could be quite isolated. And that for me was such an important leadership intervention to put in the business, because it brought us all together, one as a new team, but two as a virtual team that could potentially be socially isolated.
No, I agree with it, and I think to sort of mirror some of the things that Stewart's just spoke about there, I think the strong leaders in that were the ones that actually looked at the individuals and took that people aspect of it as well. But actually, what were the individual circumstances of the individual of that team, and what did they need to actually support and motivate them to keep working? Yeah, coming into an organisation during that time is difficult. I mean, part of my role being compliance, then to learn the compliance element of it remotely is very difficult. So you've got to do that, but we were able to, and this is where I think that a lot of the stronger organisations have realised that You can do it remotely. Yes, it's not as good as being sat next to somebody and being able to have that conversation, but you can do it. And, you know, for example, like with us, you were able to demonstrate to me some of the paperwork that I couldn't necessarily just pick up and run with.
No.
So, you know, it's having that adaptability, which is another great leadership skill. You know, you might set off on a morning thinking you're going to do one thing, and it's like taking a journey from somewhere. If the road's dug up, you've got to find a way around it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you know, that's really what COVID's thrown at businesses.
It is a good word. I'll throw another word in there, you know, and leadership in uncertainty. That's the key. Leadership in uncertainty. You know, we know there's nothing nailed as a certainty, but you know, it is leadership now through uncertainty. With a company yesterday, you know, and the MD of the company started calling me doctor, and you know, it's just. That's how it feels, you know, a treatment room, because he's having to, you know, he's got 20,000 quid's worth of kit and tools to get to Belgium, and Brexit's saying that he can't do it. Nobody will help him to do it, you know, and so it's this uncertainty and leadership through that.
It's another old adage, isn't it? It's easy to lead when things are going well. The test of a true leader is when things aren't going well. It's how do they react to that, and you know, that's a strong test of anybody. And I think COVID certainly tested, I think every business we've dealt with over the last 6-7 months, COVID has had an impact. Some of it's been positive. You know, some businesses we've worked with have had a positive, but it's how you react to that.
And there's a clear link between leadership capabilities of a team and the productivity of a team. Stewart, when you're looking at your consultancy and training around leadership, do you see a kind of positive correlation between how good a leader actually is in relation to how productive their team actually are?
Well, they do go together. You know, if you've got a strong leader, it's a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I always. I don't remember his name now. I always think about it's another sporting analogy, but when England rugby union won the World Cup, I forget the manager's name, but the real leader in there was Martin Johnson. He was the real, and I've got a few notes about that event and the leadership around that. And one thing that he said is, you know, as a leader, you know, we've got to have the big talk, which is, you know, the big picture, the strategy. We want to win the World Cup, but don't forget about the little talk, which is, you know, on the pitch, are you onside? Are you moving up? Are you in position? Are you covering? The little talks is quite as important as the big talk. So therefore, if you've got somebody with those leadership abilities to have the small talk, that's got to influence performance.
Which is communication again.
Which is communication again, and obviously the outcome of that, the ability. And the thing that got them over the line was that leadership and belief in what they wanted to achieve, and they did.
I think actually that, you know, the sporting ones are a fantastic analogy to use, because if you think about it, and this is true to business, the leader of the business, the ultimate CEO, MD, whatever it might be, they can be involved in sending that message out as to where they want the business to go and how they want to get there. But then once the workforce is out doing it, it's the same as any team sport or any athlete or whatever. Once that event actually starts, whether it be a race, whether it be a match or whatever, it's down to the either individuals or the team to pull that together and make it happen. And that's how a business should operate as well.
Well, I remember as a 21-year-old graduate going for my first job in recruitment, my sporting background was what the business has actually looked for. So obviously the degree was advantageous, but they really had homed in on the sporting background of me through swimming, cycling, running, triathlon, even down to some of the rugby that I did at school, because the communication, the teamwork, the team leading aspects of sport really went a long way in recruitment industry, because it was that desire to win. It was that always wanting to strive to be the best you possibly can be, and that competitiveness and resilience to change, and all these aspects of sport really were what the businesses were homing in on over anything else, really.
But also, those words you've just used there, and I'm sure Stewart will agree with this, they're the same things that we see when we go into a business.
Absolutely, yeah.
Attributes. Those attributes are...
And Stewart, what do you recommend, or what do you advise to any business that is looking to either change their leadership culture or embed a strong leadership culture across either a department or a whole organisation?
Well, we've got to start somewhere, and to use an analogy, you can't lead the ship, you can't steer the ship by looking at the wake. You've got to be looking at the horizon. So the first starting point is to say, where is the horizon? Where are we going? And start at that point. And it's a brave new world. That's got to be the starting point. Committing to that. The biggest thing for businesses is committing to having an outsider coming in. That's the first step. And once they do that, that helps change. That really does help change and move people forward. So making that decision to look at the horizon.
And do you sometimes find it as an external consultant going into a business that's been operating for, it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 100 years, that is a challenge for you as an external consultant by embedding yourself into that business and gaining their trust at the very beginning of an intervention? Yeah,
it is a challenge, and one I don't take lightly. But I do also have in my mind, and I'll share it with people I work with. I have no axe to grind. I'm not. They can only throw me out once. So I will be honest. I have no axe to grind, and I'm there to do nothing more than help. And get people to think differently, and get people to get the mindset of improvement and achieving some goals. But to be open and honest and say how it is my style, but it's done with good feeling and good care for the business and the people that are in it.
Well, one of the things you've got the advantage of is you can go in and you've not got any of the internal politics of the business, so you can say something that quite often people will be frightened to say because they're not, frightened of the consequences of it, and that's where that ultimate strength comes of that external person coming in. It's a fresh pair of eyes on something, as you said, no axe to grind, so all you want to do is to get the business from A to B as quickly as you can and make them more effective.
And what's your source of continuous improvement, Stewart? So, as you know, there's plenty of different leadership theories and methodologies that you would implement, train, embed into organisations, but it constantly changes. Where do you go, and what do you do to make sure that you're constantly up to date with the most recent techniques?
Of leadership, I had a period way before COVID, but I had a moment, as you do when you get to more senior years, and I thought about my own development. I set myself a task which is harder than it sounds, but I just decided that I was going to read a book, either leadership or a business book or inspirational book, and I want to read a book every month for a year. Don't sound a lot, that, but it's really, really hard. And it gets you up to date, it gets you renewed, and it gets you thinking. And one of the books is a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and habit 7 in that book is about sharpening the saw and recharging your batteries emotionally, mentally, physically, and that's my approach really. And the fact that I want to keep working, that's important that I keep doing that. And in terms of what I do